Hi, this is Amelia Lyons, teacher, therapist, mental health nurse. I'm speaking to you in my sort of personal capacity at the moment, just sharing some observations really about what I've noticed between the two main types of mature heterosexual relationships that I've kind of experienced over the years in my adult life and their main pros and cons. So I wanted to make that distinction between the idea of friends with benefits on the one end of the continuum versus sort of true partners on the other, and to think about what those have in common and what the main differences are in those kinds of relationships. Okay. So first of all, then, thinking about what all kind of good sexual relationships have in common to begin with. So things like enjoying each other's company, having fun together, having a sexual relationship, spending time together, good conversation and shared interests. So those are the kinds of things that I would say all sexual relationships have pretty much in common. And again, just to emphasize the fact that I'm focusing on heterosexual relationships because that's what I've had experience in. And I also sort of acknowledge that I think with lesbian relationships and gay relationships, there are all kinds of other relationships that, of course, happen. So I'm just focusing on these two main ones that, as an adult heterosexual female, these are the kinds of relationships that I've experienced in my adult life. And I guess I've come to know after many years and to be able to distinguish really between the two and then to think about what kind of relationship do I actually want. And I've changed my mind about that on numerous occasions. So then we see that we can see some clear differences between friends with benefits, where there's a fairly high degree of separateness in as they go about their daily lives, to the couple who is perhaps becoming a real couple now, where they fairly quickly become a couple, spending a lot of time together, and the relationship quickly clicks into place and they become quite central in each other's lives and become quite significant quite quickly. So there's a kind of a click that happens where both partners feel quite secure in the relationship and want to include each other in each other's lives. And then there's quite a lot of consultation really about family events and occasions and so on, and discussion about the degree to which people become included, the timing of it and so on. I mean, here I'm assuming people who've probably may have been married or spent a lot of their lives independently and are now kind of free agents. So they have come together as a couple now. And, what's the difference really? Do they want to remain separate and have sex, friends with benefits? Or do they want to really become included in each other's lives? And they're curious about each other, they want to know everything about each other, they want to bring out the best in each other. There's a lot of sharing involved. So thinking about that, which kind of relationship. So the latter, the true partners relationship, involves quite a lot more commitment to each other, quite an early stage. So again, some further differences here. Friends with benefits, not a very ambitious relationship. There's no ambitions to live together or become life partners. The relationship isn't really discussed very much. If it is, it might feel a little bit uncomfortable. There's a sort of general avoidance around it. And if you think of the relationship a bit as a metaphor for a room, the room isn't growing, it isn't expanding. It may begin to feel a bit stagnant, like a pond that stagnates without supplies of fresh water, because there isn't really an investment in the relationship. So mainly the two people operate separately, continuing to resolve most of their problems on their own or with their old friends and family, etc., and not really leaning on each other in that sense. So it's a kind of what I'd almost call an individual sport, really, rather than a team sport. And the relationship ultimately has a sell-by date. Now, when it's two true partners, there's more ambitions for the relationship, probably working towards living together at some point. The relationship sort of ever growing, ever building, a bit like a house that's adding rooms onto it all the time, and the partners are invested in it. So you've got collaboration, you've got conflict, because all intimate relationships have conflict, tolerate it, and that's how you grow, that's how the relationship develops. There's some compromise, and the relationship grows and develops. So it's ever growing. And they're involved with each other and each other's problems, and a desire to be helpful and useful to each other, and to be a team, to meet life out there as a team. And ambitions for a life partnership that have probably been overtly discussed. So that's your kind of true partnership versus, again, friends with benefits. And it's all about how much do you want to put of yourself into the relationship, and really considering what it is that you would like from a partnership, and noticing perhaps if there are differences between the two of you. So one might be into friends with benefits, one might be looking for a life partner, and my advice would be the sooner that gets discussed overtly, the better, so that you both know where you stand. It's a bit like in younger relationships, the big question is whether you have a child or not. And if the partner doesn't want a child and you do, is that a breaking point? And sometimes in relationships, it is, if people feel very strongly and very differently about that. So these are discussions that are worth happening sooner, or having sooner rather than later. So that concludes my mini discussion on those two kinds of relationships. Of mature heterosexual adults, which I think sort of tend to predominate in the West, but aware that there are a multiplicity of other kinds of relationships that are around too. I think, speaking from my own experience, I've been in a few friends with benefits relationships in my time, and whilst they have been fun and enjoyable, that I have ultimately found them to stagnate and be ultimately unsatisfying. And I've come to the conclusion that I'm now more ambitious about the kind of relationship that I would want to strive to. And that does involve more sacrifice and more commitment, but I think is ultimately more rewarding. And in my observations of, say, friends who are in true partnerships, it is a team effort, and I believe that is, when you can get it right, it's a very rewarding relationship to have. So to me, it wins hands down over friends with benefits, but friends with benefits can be useful in certain periods of one's life when perhaps one doesn't have enough time to invest. Thank you.